Today we're going to tear down an engine that I've already done before, but it's been nearly 3 years. This is a 3-liter Ecodiesel out of a 2014 Jeep Grand Cherokee, and it's a pretty uncommon engine. It was not a very popular choice for most people that bought them. Yes, this is the same 3-liter turbo diesel that is found in the Ecodiesel Ram. I think they're offered in other types of vehicles in other parts of the world. It's a VM Motori engine. It's an Italian-designed V6. All things I learned the last time I posted a video on one. And the last time I tore one of these down, the comments were, I would say, overwhelmingly negative about the engine itself. And, well, after looking at this some 3 years later, this doesn't look fun at all to work on. The 3-liter Ecodiesel came out for the 2014 model year. That's what year this engine is. It's a first-year engine. They produce 240 horsepower, 420 foot-pounds of torque, which seems pretty on par for its displacement and application. And what I find really funny is when you Google 3-liter Ecodiesel, you get this auto-populated paragraph that states that these are very fuel efficient and lightweight, and that they will save an owner thousands of dollars over a vehicle's lifetime in fuel costs. Let's pick that apart. I hate to pick things apart, but I suppose that is kind of what I do for a living. A vehicle's lifetime, does that mean when the engine fails, they've saved that amount of money? Because at that point, if you have a gasoline counterpart, which still runs, and this engine, which doesn't, have you really saved any money because the vehicle is worth substantially less? Or you're faced with an expensive repair bill. These engines used are $6,000, $7,000, $8,000, plus you're going to pay labor and seals and gaskets, all the while you're in there stuff. That's probably a $10,000 or $12,000 repair bill. So have you saved any money by buying this? Have you? The first thing I'd really like to find out is if this engine turns over. There's no flex plate on it, which gives me hope. A lot of hope. The last one was locked up bad. You know what? I just need a bigger bar. That's clearly the problem here. You know, I think I just need to put some more weight on it. Let's... Nope. You know, maybe we're just going the wrong direction. That's the bolt. That's not the engine. I think it's locked up too. Now, I will not be cutting any of the wires. I don't think this harness is good, but I just don't like cutting wires on harnesses unless I need pigtails from something, which I don't. So we're just going to do what we can do to get everything disconnected the right way. Especially after I mangled that charge pipe. This looks like a glow plug. Oh, they give you these little handles to pull them out. That's nice. Looks like I'm already stuck. That was quick. I swear this isn't that complicated. It might be that complicated. That did nothing. All right, it's looser-ish. I've decided the next thing I'd like to start on, since I'm not really getting anywhere with the harness, is the EGR cooler and all the EGR pipes. It'll clean this up a lot better. And we're just going to start taking stuff off. I have no idea if I'm doing this in the right order. I would be remiss if I said I cared. It moved. It's nowhere near disconnected though. It's really tight. I do remember from the last one that a lot of the comments mentioned a melted intake manifold. I think it was at the EGR pipe, which is this. That looks good. Nope, that's bad. But from this vantage point, the intake manifold does not look melted. Correct me if I'm wrong, but that looks like it's unfazed. Next, we're going to work at the butt of the engine where the turbo is. Uh-oh. Hopefully that doesn't break off in the housing. I don't want that to happen. Ooh, that feels bad. You know what? This is gonna break. I'm gonna go tight with it. We're gonna go get it hot. All right, I got it hot. See if we can't save it, please. Maybe we'll get lucky. Ah, it broke. There's some sticking out, so there's a good chance I'll be able to get that out if it's worth the time. Get this bolt out next. Next, come on. I think there's a few more things to disconnect here. Vacuum line seems impossible to get apart. Looks like it's just that vacuum line. You know what? We're gonna sacrifice the plastic. Maybe we sacrifice the rubber. Let's sacrifice the plastic. I'm gonna go out on a limb and say I'm not gonna sell that. Uh-oh, what have I done? And we're off. So here are the EGR parts. There's the pipe that goes into the intake. I'm gonna regret this, but yuck. And here's the cooler. It looks like, I don't know if this is a sign that it's leaking. Coolant, that's definitely coolant, but is that from this or is that from splashing around? There's some dried coolant all over this engine. Looks like a pretty decent piece, but again, is it worth installing a used one? I don't know. Let's get these connectors off the injectors. Now last time, I'm pretty sure I cut these between the injectors. I'm not going to do that again. You guys yelled at me for that, saying that that line's really expensive. So we're just going to pull it all, find the other end of this. It'll be fine. Next, I'm going to crack the lines loose at the injectors. And now, take them loose at the rail. Over here, we'll get this. Well, I just looked on the internet, and it turns out you can buy these hoses with the T's for about 90 bucks. I'm still going to try to get them out without breaking them, but there's no guarantee here, and I'm not going to cry when this should be replaced with new anyway. I think that's the way. Okay, there's one, two. That's not too bad once you know how to do it. Now we're going to try to remove the injectors. Hopefully they come out easy. Oh yeah. That's super easy. That was a walk in the park. None broken. Pop up these fuel lines out. Now these can kind of dangle. Man, those are tight. That was a little more stuck in there. We'll get to that. So we just got one to contend with. I'm just going to kind of move it back and forth, try to get it loosened up. You know what we should do? Let's get some
penetrator.
It's getting looser. Or I'm getting stronger. Nope, now it's stuck. Now I did it. I'm going to let that sit, and we're going to work on the injection pump. This is the fuel injection pump. Let's get this cover off. Let's crack these lines loose first. Oh, we're leaking. Not too much diesel. Too much over there. And we have two of these quick disconnect. And we'll get this little locking tab. All right, now I think we can unbolt it. These usually don't get too stuck in here. Blue, I'm gonna be gentle here. And there we go. Back to this injector. Don't really feel like prying on it's the answer. All right, I've laid a wrench in the valley. The wrench is actually around one of the valve cover bolts. And we're going to ever so gently try to pry this up. Well, that was easy. Here are the 6 injectors out of this engine. I don't see any damage to them. The one had a little bit of corrosion, made it a little tougher to get out. But I think these are going to be good cores. I typically don't sell injectors out of diesels as good unless I know it runs and has an alternate issue. I don't know that this engine ran well before it locked up, and we don't know if it's a fueling issue, so I usually sell these as cores. Now this is a CP4 injection pump, and the next thing we're going to do is remove the metering valve to check for fuel contamination. Looks pretty decent. I don't see any issues at all. So there's the valve. And if there was contamination, you'd find it on the screen. This all looks really clean. Next, I'm going to continue on this harness. More fuel lines. That was violent. We're kind of getting places. Kind of. That didn't help me. I'm not sure how these come out here. Oh, we can just pull on them, I guess. I mean, we're making progress here. And the fuel lines are off. There's more cleanup to do over here. This is fine. Things are fine. Things are not fine at the moment. It's fine. We'll just leave that like that. All right, we need to get this harness up. Blue. Oh, we still have more connectors. Of course, just a few more dozen. Well, this is unfortunate here. So this was locked up. I just need to do that. I'm sure we're like really close to get this harness off. I'm sure there can't be that much more. I shouldn't have said that. I only see a couple more connectors, truthfully. So I'm down to this one connector, which has a locking tab, and it's in a not so great area to access. We'll get it. And like that, super simple. The harness is off. Now we're going to start on the turbocharger. I'm sure it's super simple, won't take but a second, or it might take a while. We're going to start with this downpipe. Ooh, that feels like it's going to break. Ooh, that feels like it's going to break. You know what? Let's get this hot. All right, I got this a little warm. Hopefully that makes a difference. Oh, yeah. Well, I can't touch it with my hands, but it's loose. Let's try the one underneath it. It's working. This one's pulling the stud out, which is okay until it gets to this point. We'll come back to that. Get back to this one here. And come on. Like right at the end here. Well, it broke a little bit of the stud out, but I'm not really that worried about it, because I'm pretty sure I can get the rest of that stud out. Next, we're going to work on this side of the engine. I suppose I'll start with the dipstick. It's a bolted one. How bad could this be? Came right out. Next, there's the heat shield here. Next, we're going to remove what I think is an exhaust pressure sensor. I could be wrong. We're just going to get this out of the way. So I got these warmed up ahead of time. We're going to see if we can get them off without breaking the studs. Studs came out of that one. Don't want to touch that. See if we can get lucky on the second one. And the final one here. Perfect. Next, I'd like to remove the exhaust manifold, but first we're going to spray penetrator on all of these studs. And it looks like I need to remove this pipe first. Well, I guess I got to remove the bracket first. That wasn't too bad. Let's just zip these out real quick. I think this comes off now. Like a glove, that's hot. Next, I'm going to remove this heat shield. I made that work. Go ahead and get this bolt out too. Now, I'm not sure if you call this an up pipe or not, but to get to the bolts that hold this to the turbo, the exhaust housing of the turbo, I'm going to remove this coolant line. It just makes it a smidge easier. And we have coolant.
What's that doing in there?
I'm actually going to work on removing the oil cooler, the oil filter housing, this unit right here. I need to get to the exhaust manifold bolts. There's a lot going on here. Is this going to leak everywhere? Probably not. Now, I'm pretty sure there's probably more that holds this on. Or there isn't, and it just comes right off. That was really easy. And it's making a mess. I don't know what this is doing in there, but that doesn't go there. Much like the other side, we're going to spray this down with some penetrator. While we're waiting for that to set in, let's get this bracket out of the way. Well, the next 3 bolts I need to get really nuts on studs. There's 2. They're actually pretty easy to get to, but that one back there might prove to be a bit challenging. Let's see what we can do. I can get on it from this vantage point, I think. Oh yes, I'm sure that's a real easy one to get started though. I think it's fair to say most of this stuff gets done with the cab off or engine out. Yeah, I'm sure the Grand Cherokee is the worst one to work on. Bolt number 2. And the final bolt, extension. Very good. Now we can get the left side exhaust manifold. Now this exhaust manifold should just slide right off. There we are. Next we'll remove the oil feed for the turbocharger. There's a banjo bolt up here. And there's a banjo fitting down here for one of the coolant pipes. I'm going to assume that leads to the other side of the turbo, but I could be wrong. It's also really tight. That was violent. Actually, that is the oil feed line. I did not know that. So how do you get to the other coolant line? I feel like I ran into this last time. So I know it's hard to see, but right there is the fitting for the other coolant line. So I guess I'm going to try to remove some of these heat shields. I don't think that's going to help me at all. Oh, maybe it goes this way. Oh, are we on to something? Oh yes, that's how you do it. Normally, all of this stuff is in the way of this. I think it's a 19. But what I'm going to do is carefully use precision and gain access. I would not work on your car this way. but this is a core engine, so it doesn't matter. Here goes something. Look at that. All right, now we can unbolt the turbo from the engine, see what happens. Wow, those are tight. Do I need to get the torch out for this? Maybe. I've decided the right thing is to use the impact on it. See? Right thing. Can I touch them? That all that holds the turbo on? Let's see if this turbo comes off. Came right out. So I went ahead and pulled the little inlet off the turbo. You can see that turbo spins nice. The impeller looks pretty good. I don't see any damage from debris. Not any unnormal or abnormal play. Spins nice. Exhaust housing has one broken stud there and one broken stud there. Not super detrimental. Those can be removed. I don't see any other damage anywhere else. I think this turbo came off of this engine a lot easier than the last one I tore down. I can't really take a look at the VGT actuator. I don't really have a way of testing that, but I will tell you that this is original. This is a 2013 date code, so it's original to the engine. Next, we'll get this intake manifold off, hopefully. I don't see anything hiding. We're just going to try some stuff. I could be wrong. It's happened many, many times. Yes, more bolts. See? That's why we don't go prying on things all crazy like. I don't know if you really want to call this a throttle body, but we're going to get this out of the way. All right, which one is holding it? There we are. Intake is off. Let's take a look at these intake ports. Emissions diesels look like this. I wouldn't say this is worse than any of the other emission diesels that we've torn down. It doesn't look good. And it is really hard to see the valves because of the design of the cylinder head. And it's all like the black abyss. Ooh,
that's got chunkies in it.
That's not good for flow. So here's the intake manifold. And it doesn't look melted, but this is going to take some extra good cleaning to make this usable. Look at the amount of buildup on that. I wonder if there's anything you can do, a catch can, deleting things. No, I would never recommend doing that. No, that would be terrible. Next, I'm going to clean up the caboose of the engine here. Just get some of these bolts out, some of these pipes off. I don't know if that's actually going to help us, but it might. Look at that unit. Next, I'm going to remove the fuel rails. I feel like I sold the fuel rails out of the last engine pretty easily. Ooh, they're full of fuel. And finally, we have reached the point in the teardown where we can pull a valve cover off of it. I suppose I could have done this sooner, but I wanted to get all the other ancillary parts off. Sure, this will just pop right off. There we are. Well, I'm actually surprised. It's quite clean in here. I don't see tons of sludge that I usually see when I tear down a modern diesel. This looks pretty good. I'd say that whoever owned this likely used good oil, and they probably changed their oil pretty frequently. And I don't see any issues with the chain. This all looks solid. To get to all of the valve cover bolts on the left side, you need to remove this weird apparatus here. It seems like a slightly unnecessary thing, but it isn't. Probably something to do with packaging. Hopefully this one comes off just as easy. Here's a good look at how clean this thing is. I am really shocked. This has to be one of the cleanest diesels that we've ever done, at least emissions diesels we've ever done on this channel. I don't see any forbidden glitter. The lobes of the cams look good. All the valve trains in place. Chain looks nice. Next, we're going to start on the upper timing covers. We're going to start on the right-hand side. I'm pretty sure I got all the bolts out. We're going to find out right now. And there's our first look inside the timing system. So far, everything's looking pretty good. I don't see really any signs of concern. Not yet. Let's go to the other side. Let's get this tensioner out of the way. I see. My battery is low. Now it's time to try to get this thing off. There is a pressure sensor on here, and I suppose that has to do with crankcase ventilation. Let's see, is there anywhere to pry that's not inside the crankcase? I really don't like prying on stuff on the inside. That's not how, we're not going to do that. That's wrong. There must be a way. Let's try hitting it from behind. That's not what I meant. I think we broke the seal. Hey, we're getting places. Okay, and we're off. Well, I still don't see anything wrong in here. It all looks like I'm opening up a good engine that just happens to be locked up. Now it's time for the water pump. At this point, I think the whole unit can come out, but I want to take a look at the actual pump itself. So we're going to take these hex sockets or hex bolts out. I have no idea if those needed to come out, but I took them out anyway. All right, let's just give it a couple. Oh, wait, I'm missing one. Missing one. It's going to work wrong. We have a backwards bolt right here. So I don't really know what to expect here. Well, it feels like the whole unit's going to come out. What is the, what? We're going to just use the hammer a little bit. And we're out. This comes apart some way or another. Let's get this water pipe off of it. Well, we're halfway there. I can kind of see it. This comes apart, right? Or is this a sealed unit? I feel like this might be a sealed unit. Let's keep trying. It's not working, folks. But it does spin really well. It is wet around here, but that's probably just the gasket. You can see the impellers in there. It looks pretty decent. I think once you remove this thermostat, this would be a nice water pump. Next stop, crank pulley town. No puller needed there. Now we'll start unbolting the lower timing cover. That's the sound of loose. No, this side doesn't even have a place to do that. Okay. There we are. Pretty dirty, but it's not as bad as we've seen. A lot of debris fell into this when I pulled it off. Let's take a look at the timing system on this engine. It looks pretty good. I found a few date codes from 2013, which means that I don't think anybody's been in here replacing parts. Not that I can see anyway. I don't see any signs that the guides are coming apart. This all looks good. And I don't really see a load of bad stuff in the bottom. So, really hard to say so far. Before I peel any of the timing components off, we're going to get the cam gear bolts loose. They are tight. Next, we're going to get the timing chain tensioners off. I have no idea how much power is behind them, so you better be safe than sorry. Oh, stuff went flying. Let's do it again. That was violent, but not as violent as the first one. I have no idea where that went.
Oh man, I really gotta go. Oh, hopefully nobody's in here. Does it look clean? It's good. Oh, I gotta put my safety tote. You never know what may happen in here. Ooh. Oh God, I'm busy. Gotta have the safety tote.
Let's take a look at this tensioner.
Stop! I'm doing paperwork!
Next, I'm going to crack all the T45s loose that hold the rails in. First rail. Yeah, that's actually in really good shape. I wonder how many miles were on this. This doesn't look like a super high mileage engine from what I can see. That is a nice rail. Same thing here. This thing is just, it's perfect. Let's see if we can get, can we do this, huh? Yes? No? Yes. That's kind of cool. Oh, that was bad. What do you mean you don't come off? Well, we'll just have to do it this way. Oh, yes. Beautiful. Uh-oh. I see bad stuff. The rail's in good shape, but there's flakes of bearing or metal on it. That's not where those go. So this is what I'm talking about. We have some lower end trouble. I mean, we kind of knew that already. It's locked up. Perfect. Just going to go ahead and get this coolant pipe out of the way. Now it's finally time to cam these cram caps off. These are M8 triple squares. Well, I gave the journals a brake clean bath because they were dirty. And they don't look terrible. All the rollers feel nice. This thing looks pretty well taken care of at this point. A little bit of a line. Something got in there. This is probably the worst one here. I also gave the cams and caps a brake clean bath. They don't look bad. Maybe a little bit of wear there. That has some wear. That one has some wear also. I think they're definitely serviceable though. I don't think that these are way too far gone like some of the stuff we take apart on this channel. Looks pretty solid. Especially considering we suspect a bottom end issue. Now it's time to take the head bolts out. I do not remember how tight these were on the last one. I'm expecting them to be tight because it's a diesel. Well, let's get another adapter. It's fine. What? I'm gonna run out of these things. All right, so now I have one from a fine city in Pennsylvania. This will probably not do the trick. No, it's gonna break. It's gonna break. You know, I really wanted to get the head off tonight, but it doesn't look like that's gonna happen. Nope, it's already bad. I already twisted it. This must wait till tomorrow. I guess I'm done for the night. All right, I found another one in the shop. It's not mine. Let's hope we don't break it. I'm going home. Okay, let's try this again with a new socket. 1/2-inch drive socket instead of 3/8. That was definitely a short sight on my part. This is really tight. Yes, that worked. Let's take a look at these big things. Those are some meaty bolts. All right, now this head should hopefully come right off. Oh, I see some bad stuff already. Can you see it? You should be able to see it. That piston smashed into the cylinder head. It looks like it tried to make its own valve reliefs. Look how clean the piston is. The cylinder walls, they don't look, well, the top looks rough. That one looks pretty good. That one looks good, but this one, not so good. In the name of science, the test. That doesn't... I mean, did we expect anything? This is... The block is solid. The head gasket doesn't look too bad. It's definitely in great shape. Now, I don't like going back to front, but we're going to start at the back of the engine. Those two, rather sooty, but this one has a clear imprint from the piston hitting it. The only way a piston makes contact with the cylinder head is when there's a lack of rod bearing, or someone installed the wrong length connecting rod, which that's not what happened here. You can see the shape of the piston on the valves. Hopefully the head is okay. Now we'll start on the other bank and get these cam caps off. This side has about the same amount of wear on these journals. This intake cam journals look pretty good. Rollers also feel good on this side. But the exhaust, well, okay, that one looks good. That one doesn't look too bad. This one has some moderate damage. Intake cam on the right bank, not terrible. Caps do show some wear. More than I'd like, but some wear is more than I'd like. Exhausts are worse. Time to crack these head bolts. Oh, okay. Hopefully this one just pulls off just as easily as the other. So this side looks better. There's no marks from a cylinder head or valves, so that's a plus. Cylinder walls don't look awful. There's a little bit of damage. Some scratches and grooves. It'll look much better once we get this all the way apart. And when I say better, You know what I mean. Ah, of course, the test. How could I forget? Nothing moves. No surprise. This head looks much better because it hasn't been whacked with a piston. The head gasket, just like the other side, looks pretty nice. Next, we're going to turn this thing upside down so we can pull the oil pans. I hear some loose stuff. Oh, did you hear that? I think this lower pan's been off. You know what we're going to do? We are going to pull just the lower pan off with it upright. Let's see, what do we find in here? Looks like most of the bolts are out of this. Did I miss one? Nope. Oh, that's really bad. Check out this bearing smorgasbord. Look at all the different pieces. There's big pieces, little pieces, all species of pieces. We got some Reynolds bearing foil right there. You guys told me that that's called swarf. Am I saying that right? There's more foil. Like, I can't explain to you how much junk is in this. For an engine that didn't chuck a rod, I am really impressed. It's every inch of this. I can understand why it's locked up. The question is, how is this going to come apart? Because it already came partially apart. That's one of the most impressive party platters that we've seen out of one of these engines that didn't have chunks of block in it. Now we'll roll this the rest of the way over. Oh, there's more in here. Look at all that. Are there any bearings left in this engine, or is it all in the pan? The pickup looks pretty clean. So why is there a bunch of bearing material in here? Next, we'll pull the upper oil pan. Okay, I think I've got them all except for... Nope, they're all out. Should be able to pry this up pretty easily, I think. There's a sensor of some kind back here. And the upper pan is off. There's some problems going on in here. This windage tray is now a blowage tray. I didn't expect to find carnage in this engine. I really didn't. So this is, dare I call it, a pleasant surprise. Here's what the inside of the upper pan looks like. Pretty bad. Definitely not as bad as what's in this lower pan. It's just a mess. So obviously something tried to make a quick exit. These blocks look pretty stout, so it probably held it in, although I am a little suspicious that the lower oil pan was already off. So we may be missing some of the explosive pieces. You can definitely see something smash this pretty hard. Next, let's remove the pickup tube. We'll start on this blowage tray. And the great reveal, it looks like we're missing a cap. Will we find it somewhere else in here? As you can see, this was cut, almost cut all the way through on one half of it. Probably from when that rod cap kicked loose. So I would venture to say that that's probably not present, and whoever pulled the lower pan likely has it. From this angle, I was pretty sad because I could tell that there was some damage right there. Look at that prettiful coloring. But then when I looked at it from this vantage point, there's the cap. Yep, it's still present. Wow. Next, I'm going to remove the oil pump. Don't know which bolts are needed. That seems loose. Here we are. Let's pull this thing apart, shall we? Is that enough? Just give it a little help here. There we go. How does this not come apart? This comes apart, right? Why wouldn't this come apart? Why would it? All right, I'm going to get this all wiped down so we can take a look at what we've got. So this housing definitely has some wear. It's not as bad as you'd expect for the amount of material we found in the pan. The outer gear, some wear, and the inside definitely shows some signs that metal ran through there. You could see like if my camera would focus, you could see how gritty the texture is. There's a good look at it. It's not supposed to be like that. This housing, similar story, and that gear as well. That one's pretty dirty. I didn't do a good job cleaning that one up. And the outer housing, probably the fairest shape of them all. So I just slid this gear off. Well, here's the key. Come on, get off of there. I think this one comes off too. Well, I can see the main bearing is not spun. That's different than the last one. Now it's time to split the engine. We're going to remove this bed plate. We're going to start with the smaller bolts. All right, now we're going to crack these loose in some kind of pattern. You know what? This is already totally wrecked. Let's just use the impact. Unfortunately, I need to remove one of the 4 engine stand bolts. It's fine. Now we have to find a place to pry. Yeah, that worked. All right, we're ready to pull the bed plate off. Well, here's a better look at the carnage. And it looks like this one just comes right out. Set that right there. That is not going to come right out. It's going to take a little bit of violence to get out. But one other thing I noticed is that this main bearing has spun. So this bearing destroyed itself. It's just, that's what we found in the pan. This one spun. Can't really tell much with these two. These two look okay. We don't know what the rest of the rod bearings look like. That one also looks okay. I'm going to attempt to turn the crank backwards. You know what I should do? I should put the bolt back in it. This is going to work. And if it doesn't, it should have. That's not going to work. Let's get the bigger bar so it really doesn't work. I'm going to break that bolt off in the snout of the crank, and then it'll be useless. Not that it's... No, this is not going to work. Let's see if we can't... This is like totally wedged in here. Let's pull this bolt out of the way. I really don't want to do anything that's going to damage the crankshaft. Oh, I think I moved that. Let's see if old Blue can get this dislodged here. That's not even coming close to budging. I really need to turn the crank counterclockwise. Will this work? I don't know. Am I going to try it? You bet. Oh yeah, look at that. Well, it's more loose. That is, we're just going to unbolt the rest of the caps and get the crank out of the way. That's what we're going to have to do. Of course, we're always going to start at the front. That one doesn't need unbolting. Did I forget those? I can do things out of order, it's okay. Now I think we can pull the hammer mill out. Let's see what happens here. Oh, we're dropping stuff. It's just a thrust bearing. So this is what we're looking at here. There's the rod cap, the infamous rod cap. It's in outstanding condition. Hammer forged. I'm sure this was just a silent, it just locked up at idle. No noise associated with it, no warning lights, it just out of the blue bearings. Now we'll start pulling the rods and pistons. We'll do this bank first. Nope, we're gonna need a helping hand with this one. This one's really not wanting to come out. I think we're crowning. There we go. That took a lot to get the first one out. Hopefully the next ones come out a little easier. These are really tough in there. I think it's that carbon ridge at the top, and I don't have a ridge reamer here. That would be smart. Is that helping? Oh yeah, that's doing it. Not enough though. Hopefully these come out pretty easy. I have my doubts. I think that was the easiest one. Final cylinder. Let's start out with the rod bearings. The upper shell has quite a bit of wear, and that's from the thrust. And the reason it's offset is because the rod is offset. They do that so that you can pull the rod assembly out of the top of the bore. Otherwise it wouldn't fit because the bearing diameter is too large. This is the most carnage in the engine. Obviously it's pretty terrible. You never want to have your rod cap shaped like this. This takes quite a lot of force to do this. And as you can see, there's a lot of heat in the top of this rod because it annihilated this bearing. I would imagine most of the bearing flakes, these things that we found in the upper and lower oil pan, were from this particular rod bearing. And the neighboring rod, there's a few marks on it. There's one right there. It's really not as badly beat up as I expected. And then when you get further back, significant wear to the bearings. Lots of wear. And the rods and pistons, this one has a major gouge in it, which made this bolt a lot harder to get out than it needed to be. Pistons all have significant wear on the skirts, lots of buildup in the ring lands, but the rings are all free. That piston looks okay at the top. This is the one that's the most exciting. It has new valve imprints in it, but I didn't see any other damage to the piston besides, again, the skirt wear. I haven't tried to clean these up. Maybe I'll do that. Yeah, I'll do that right now. So the oil ring on this piston broke when I was wiping them down. I don't think that was anything but me wiping them down, but the rest of these did not clean up that well. The skirts aren't as bad as they once looked. The reason these were so tough to get out was that ridge of carbon along the top. You can see it's also at the top of the piston on the crown. Now, I don't think any of these are worth reusing. Not a single one would I put back into any of these engines, but they make great desk ornaments. So if you guys want one of these for your desk, just shoot us an email. We have most of 6 to sell. We'll run them through the parts washer first. That way they're as clean as, I suppose, they can be. Yeah, these were a lot of work to get out. Next, the main bearings. Pretty significant wear to the front journal. And this one's spun. You can see when you roll it over, there's the damage. This one's got even more damage on it. Pretty heavy wear on that shell as well. These are all pretty heavily worn. Honestly, I really think that the bearing width, the journal width of this engine has a lot to do with how these have worn and how significant the wear is on these bearings, because this is not a lot of surface area. I think they try to make up for it in diameter and not width. The crank is really rough. Let me rotate this over so we can get a better look. So that journal is just, it's cooked. You can see the discoloring in the crankshaft. That coincides with the coloring of the rod. There's a lot of heat, a lot of friction. As crank days are over. That journal also really rough. The rest of these aren't too bad. The further away from the damage, the better they get. On the inside of the bed plate, there's the marks from this endeavor. Cast iron is pretty strong. And there's the damage to the block. Pretty significant damage to the bottom of the bore. But for as mangled as that rod cap was, this held up great. I think it's a pretty stout block. Let's take a look at these bores. This is a cylinder that let go here. And you can definitely see there's the damage at the bottom of the bore. So there is coinciding damage to the bore from that. The cylinder next to it, though, it's a lot better. And you can see that ridge at the top, that carbon ridge. That's what made getting the rods and pistons out so difficult. This bank isn't quite as bad. That's just some cleanup that I neglected to get to. I've read lots of things as to what causes this type of failure with an Ecodiesel. One of the things that I see mentioned a lot is the incorrect oil used, and another thing is the extended oil change intervals. The early engines had an oil change interval that was too long. I have no idea what it is that killed this exact one. It was for sure an oiling issue, and with an engine with this much stuff on it, packed in this tight together, it's a recipe for large labor bills when things go wrong. I cannot imagine owning one of these vehicles and getting a coolant leak every other year with one of those hoses on the back of the engine, especially if you had a Grand Cherokee. And I'm not knocking these vehicles. I don't think they're terrible vehicles. But unless you do all of the work yourself and you have a lot of free time, owning one of these could be very costly in the long run. Maybe for the short term, they would be great, and I know that some people have had really great luck with these things. But like anything else, you have outliers. You have engines that make it 250, 300,000 miles that were built on a Wednesday, and then you have your Monday morning or Friday afternoon engines. And I really don't know. This is only the second one of these that I've torn down, but I'm not the biggest fan. And it's not that I don't think that they're cool. I love the idea of different types of engines and different types of vehicles. I just think that this engine was packed so tight. There's so many things working against the ease of ownership. And that's what I'm about. I like vehicles that are easy to own, like an E90 328 with a manual like this. This is an easy car to own. There's only a few things that go wrong, and it doesn't happen but once every 100 to 150,000 miles. An Ecodiesel, maybe you get lucky, maybe you don't. Let me know what you guys think. What do you think killed this engine? Because it looked like it was maintained pretty well, and most of the wear on the bearings was from power. It was in the thrust area of the bearing. So I didn't see anything abnormal. The cams looked good. There wasn't a ton of sludge in this engine. I definitely think it had some miles on it, maybe 100,000, 120,000, but I'll never know because unfortunately I don't get those type of details at some of the places I buy engines from. Now, if you'd like to buy any parts out of this engine, this has a lot of really good parts that might still be good and some good stuff for your desk or anything else I've torn down, or out of this 59,000 mile, I know it's really sad, 2008 328 with a 6-speed manual. I'm going to leave our email in the video description. You can also go to importapart.com and peruse our inventory. I've been uploading our parts cars every single week. I really hope you enjoyed this video. As always, I love all the comments, all the feedback, and even the criticism. I love it all, and I'll catch you on the next one.